A very warm good afternoon to our honorable dignitaries, our respected teachers, and our non-teaching staffs, and all my dear classmates. It gives me immense joy and pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of those who have gathered here. Firstly, I would like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Bengaluru City University, Professor Lingaraj Gandhi sir. I would also like to welcome our Registrar Sri Javre Gowda sir, KAS, Bengaluru City University. I would like to welcome our guest speaker of the day, Dr. G.M. Anantharamaiah, Professor Emeritus, University of Alabama, Birmingham, USA. I would like to extend my very warm welcome to Professor P. Balram, Pharma Director, Indian Institute of Sciences. He is a recipient of one of the highest Indian civilian honor of Padma Bhushan. I would like to welcome Professor N. M. Nanjegowda. And also, I would like to welcome the delegation from University of Wolverhampton, United Kingdom, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Subhashini. I would like to welcome our Dean of Sciences, Chairperson of Chemistry Department, Professor Hari Prasad sir. And a very warm welcome to all the former alumni of the department, faculty members, non-teaching staffs, and my dear friends.
Now I invite my classmate Subhadra to sing an invocation song. Shri Saraswati Namostute Amba Shri Saraswati Namostute Amba Shri Saraswati Namostute Paradevate Shri Saraswati Namostute Paradevate Shripati Gauri Pati Guru Guha Vinute Vidhiyuvate Shri Saraswati Namostute Vasana Traya Vivarjita Varamuni Bhavita Murte Vasana Traya Vivarjita Varamuni Bhavita Murte Vasavatya Khilani Jaravara Vitarana Bahu Kirte Vasavatya Khilani Jaravara Vitarana Bahu Kirte Dharahasayut Mukamburu hai Adbhuta Charanamburu hai Samsara Bhityapahe Sakala Mantrakshara Dharahasayut Mukamburu hai Adbhuta Charanamburu hai Samsara Bhityapahe Sakala Mantrakshara Guhe Pa Mapada Papa Magari Sari Dasari Mapa Magari Sari Mapada Sari Magari Risani Dapa Magari Mashri Saraswati Namostute Varadevate Shripati Gauri Pati Guru Guha Vinute Vidhiyuvate Shri Saraswati Namostute Varadevate
Thank you, Subhadra. Brightness and prosperity are the symbols of light. It is a positive force that removes the darkness. Light is a divinity of life. It shows the right direction of life. With this holy thought, we'll have a traditional auspicious lamp lighting ceremony as a tribute to Mother Saraswati. I invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Honorable Chief Guest, guests of honor, and all the dignitaries to light the lamp.
Dr. G. M. Anantharamaiah is an Emeritus Professor in the Department of Medicine at University of Alabama, Birmingham. He received his bachelor's degree in 1967 and his master's degree in 1969 from the Chemistry Department, Central College, Bangalore University, Bangalore. Dr. Anantharamaiah completed his PhD degree in 1978 under the guidance of late Professor K. M. Shivanandaya, working on peptide chemistry. He received his postdoctoral training at Ohio State University in Columbus in 1979. Dr. Anantharamaiah joined the University of Alabama Birmingham faculty in 1982 as an assistant professor in pathology. His research interests include studying the structures and functions of plasma apolipoproteins, ApoA1 structure and functions, ApoE structure and functions, structure of ApoA1 in Alzheimer's disease, and research. His research also involves peptide synthesis, protein analysis, biophysical, biochemical studies, transgenic mouse technology, molecular biology in vivo models of atherosclerosis. He also received the prestigious National Academy of Inventors Fellow Award in 2019. He has approximately 250 publications in most reputed journals and approximately 25,000 citations. He is one of the most successful patent-holding scientists at University of Alabama, Birmingham. His most recent research is focused on enzymes, genes, amino acids, peptide chemistry, cholesterol, and electrospray ionization techniques. Professor G. M. Anantharamaiah has a discipline index of 85. With this brief introduction, we welcome you once again, sir. I request Professor Hariprasad sir to deliver the flowers. I request Hariprasad sir to deliver flowers to our guest faculty, Professor G. N. Anantharamaiah. I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Lingaraj Gandhi sir, to address the gathering.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good afternoon to one and all. The most respected highly distinguished academic, researcher, scientist, teacher, and the proud alumnus of this historic institution, Central College. Currently, Professor Emeritus, University of Alabama, Birmingham, USA. On behalf of the university and my personal behalf, I extend a very, very warm welcome to you, sir. We have yet another illustrious scientist, Padma Bhushan, the director, former director of the world-renowned institution, world-renowned institution of higher education research, which has brought the fame and the name and respect not only for the city, Bangalore city, Karnataka, but to the entire India. One of the premier institutions of science, IISc. Professor Balram is here. We have yet another alumnus, the great admirer, who so emotionally, passionately owns this department, so passionately associated with, and he continues the association through ACCA, Association of Central College Chemistry Alumni, Professor M.N. Nanjegowda. He has been here in all our activities. The new university, as a university, we are only 5 years old, but as an institution, we are 165-year-old. It is these people, the luminaries of education, science, who have made us proud, and they continue to support the new university. We need to rebuild, revisit, reinvent, and we should become once again a leading university of the country and even the world. Why not? Because we inherit such a legacy, such a history of achievements in science, in arts, in literature, in sports, you name it, in politics. So therefore, I'm particularly happy that the Department of Chemistry, perhaps the only department with at least 5 permanent faculty or senior faculty, and it is a leading department now for the new university. I'm happy Professor Hari Prasad, who is the chairperson and also the Dean, Faculty of Science, and all his colleagues, senior colleagues, for organizing this very important special lecture program. This means so much to us. It means coming together of the past and the present in terms of the academic experience, knowledge, and it is the meeting of the past and the present, the experienced and the young. And for Professor Anantharamaiah, it's also homecoming. It's a happy homecoming. This classroom invokes very great memories for all of them. They're so passionately attached to it because this classroom is also a place of history, proud place of history. Often quoted that one of our proud achievers of Central College, Bharata Ratna, C.N.R. Rao, used to sit in the place where you're sitting. This which makes us feel so proud. And although we are new, we inherited such great history. This can be an inspiration to the students, to the faculty, to the researcher, and even for the leaders like us who want to build the new institution. So therefore, amidst all our challenges of facilities required for research, higher research, um, be it lab, be it the equipments, be it the classrooms and whatever. And human resources, we are here. And these people are the great connect between the past and the present. And therefore, I congratulate the Department of Chemistry and the faculty for organizing, for bringing us, and providing an opportunity for us to relive the history, remember the history, remembering the history. And it is again a happy day for us, for the new university. This very morning, we had the inauguration of one of our first collaborative programs, international collaborations between University of Wolverhampton, UK. I was there only last month. And we have got into MOU, BCU, Bangalore, Wolverhampton University. And the faculty are here to share the knowledge, to talk about the experience, to talk about the avenues are there for student mobility, student research, faculty exchange, joint webinars, seminars, and internship opportunities over there, even joint supervision of PhD programs, joint publications. They are here, we inaugurated the collaborative activities. They will be here for a week. Only last week, we had organized jointly a conference on healthcare system, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission in collaboration with Wolverhampton, with Terry, of course. So this, very short span of 5 years, we are able to make international presence and motivate, guide our students, create opportunities, create platforms. And there is not only that we need to learn from there, they also need to learn from here. So therefore, for the postgraduate students, young researchers, this is a great opportunity to see and listen to such researchers, scholars, who have such a treasury of knowledge, experience, commitment. They not only bring knowledge and experience, they bring values with them. It is the values which bind us together, old and the young. What it means to achieve excellence in research, how much discipline, hard work, dedication it takes, what it means to study in a university, study in a department like chemistry, which has such a history. So therefore, it's perhaps one of the most momentous day today, where the two collaborative activities, our own people who have gone there, served those institutions, are here back again to give back. I'm very happy. We can only build the institutions through such collaborations and giving back. Therefore, once again, I thank the organizers. I thank for their precious time. And for us, this is a source of inspiration, motivation for us to move forward with more zeal, enthusiasm, and commitment. We have our new registrar administration, who is a senior KS officer posted last month. And we need a lot of administrative support, financial support, even to organize activities like this. We need administrators who can respond to it. So this is an important activity. It requires support. And as a young university, only through cooperation and collaboration with a shared commitment, we can build it. So with these words, I thank the department, and I thank all of you for this opportunity, for bringing such great people, and we are able to see them, listen to them, and get inspired by them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. I now request our registrar, Shri Javregowda KAS, to address the gathering.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ, ಒಂದು ವಿಚಾರ ಸಂಕಿರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪ್ರಾಧ್ಯಾಪಕರುಗಳು, ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರುಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಮಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರ ಜೊತೆ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಭಾಗವಹಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದೇ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿ, ಇದೇ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲಿತು ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹುದ್ದೆಗಳನ್ನು ಈ ದಿವಸ ತಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಅನುಭವವನ್ನು ಹಂಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಮಿಸಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾನು ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ನಾನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಮುಕ್ತಾಯ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
Thank you, sir. I request Professor P. Balram to address the gathering.
I've come here to listen to Dr. Anantharamaiah, not to talk. And the only reason I'm here is that I came to this college in 1974 or 75 for the first time. He was the secretary of the Chemical Society, and he had called me to give a talk. And from that time onwards, we've been friends. We both worked in the same field of peptide chemistry, so we've kept in touch with one another for now almost 50 years. So it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Nanjegowda, sir, to speak a few words.
So good afternoon to all of you. Association of Central College Chemistry Alumni, Akka, all of you know, it was inaugurated by none other than Dr. G. Anantharamaiah. Since then, I think it is going ahead, arranging many programs and also giving books to different institutions. And of course, there are various programs were conducted. I am personally happy that Dr. Anantharamaiah could come here. We were classmates, we were roommates, and also research mates, of course. He is very close to me in the sense he was the one who was inspiring me to do more research. In fact, probably I should tell, night times we were staying in the hostel. For food, he would call me on the second floor, he would call me from the ground floor, so we will go for food. After having food, I would stay in the hostel, but he would come back and continue his work probably till 12 o'clock or sometimes 1 o'clock. Sometimes he would sleep. He really worked a lot during his PhD program. I think that was worth it at that time. With these few words, I don't want to take much of his time because we have to listen to him. I thank Dr. Hari Prasad and the colleagues for inviting us to be associated with this function. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor Emeritus G.M. Anantharamaiah, sir, to deliver his talk.
Thank you very much, for this wonderful opportunity to go back to 1974 and onwards up to today. I have given one or two talks in Indians of Science, but that was quite some time ago. And it's kind of a progress report, not only progress report, but kind of end of career, presenting to my friend Professor Birmingham. Some of the slides he has seen already, but many of the slides he has not seen. One Dr. Gopi, who is the student of, thank you, this is what I want. Student of Professor Shivanandaya, my mentor, and also worked with Professor Balaram as a postdoc, who is in Kanpur. 2 years ago, he asked me to give a talk, Zoom talk, because it was COVID time. And he even gave me the topic, that is my experiences in Central College and how it shaped my research career. And I prepared the talk. But most of the scientists, even for the Zoom talk, backed out. They didn't want to even listen to any talks during the COVID times. Once Professor Nanjagowda posted a video of Vice Chancellor visiting chemistry department and highlighting the achievements of chemistry department, including CNR Rao's mention. So I told him at that time that I had prepared a talk, something like this, but I never gave a talk. But immediately, Professor Nanjagowda said, when you come to Bangalore, you must give this talk. So I told him, I am coming to Bangalore because my mother is 95, I want to be with her most of the time. But he said, please make some time and give this talk. So is this talk. Shivanandaya in 1969, and next to him is Professor N.R. Krishnaswamy, who was a great teacher and always encouraged us and guided us from. So, Professor Shivanandaya was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by Indian Peptide Society. And he is a true pioneer at that time in peptide chemistry. And KMS did not attend the talk. And it was my honor to give his talk, the best I could. And Professor Suresh Babu, who is the successor in Central College in continuing peptide chemistry, accepted the award. So when I approached him, why did you not attend this function? This was for you. He said, Peptide Society is formed in India, and it conducts international meetings in the field of peptide research. Is the best award anyone can give. That was his statement. So first set of students from under Professor Shivanandaya are 4 of us. This one. Okay. Yeah. No. I will go change it. So when we started the peptide synthesis laboratory, we had very little, not many equipments and solvents and other chemicals available. All we had was only few amino acids, free amino acids, always under the custody of Professor Shivanandaya. He would release only a milligram, a gram or 2 grams at the most. not much more than that. Organic, all the other uh, regular things were available, including some gaseous ammonia, hydrogen cylinders, etc. And for dry ice, I used to bicycle about 10-12 miles to one way to get some dry ice. So before we start the synthesis, we used to distill all our solvents, reagents, etc. Prepare all the reagents that are needed for derivatization of amino acids, and then distill even very toxic chemicals like ethyl or isobutyl chloroformate. So you can't hear it, right? Or can I talk without all this?
No, it's okay. You speak with this.
Okay. Okay. I'll try to speak loud.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Speak.
Okay. So I was given 4. Can you go back? Say change next. Can I test it? Okay, you will change that. That experience of preparing all these reagents, solvents, etc., was very useful. Even today, when I went to University of Alabama at Birmingham 40 years ago, I prepared 4 kilograms of reverse phase HPLC, 4 kilograms of the silica gel derivatized to form reverse phase columns. I still use it. I still have a kilogram of that. Next. So the methods for peptide synthesis were slowly evolving. Solution phase synthesis, peptide synthesis was the standard of the day. Solid phase peptide synthesis was slowly gaining importance. Proper resins were not available still, and Merrifield, who is the Nobel Prize winner for developing this solid phase peptide synthesis, had written maybe 4 or 5 articles on peptide synthesis and solid phase peptide synthesis. Next slide. So the things that we used to do was elemental analysis. We used to go to Indians of Science. We used to go to Indians of Science for everything, particularly for library. We used to spend half a day during morning times. That's why we had to stay so long in the laboratory to do research. Outstanding library facility in Indians of Science. And we used to do simple techniques like column chromatography, TLC, amino acids through Balram's help, and flash chromatography. Yeah, all these we take for granted now were not available at that time. Next. I was given these 3 problems to synthesize a tetrapeptide and an 18 residue peptide. I will talk a lot about this 18 residue peptide, and synthesis of one nanopeptide. And this 18 residue peptide, I took a very long time to synthesize. So first I was asked to synthesize using the so-called solution phase. Prepared all the fragments, but some reactions did not go to completion. I had to change the strategy.
I'm leaving.
Sure.
Please carry on. Quick.
Next. So we changed the strategy to fragment condensation on using on solid phase peptide synthesis. I synthesized a tetrapeptide using the solid phase method, and on solid phase we condensed the fragments and released a 12 residue peptide using aminolysis, and then added the hexapeptide, but at this stage, the hydrogenation was not successful using cylinder hydrogen. Removal of this nitrogen group was very difficult. Next slide. I was fortunate. The problem is very important for you. So we identified a method called transfer hydrogenation. In this method, cyclohexene, when boiled, refluxed in presence of palladium black, disproportionates into cyclohexane and benzene. In this process, hydrogens are given to the palladium black surface, and if you add your amino acid or peptide whose protecting groups have to be removed, we get free amino acids or peptides. I use this method to produce the ACTH fragment, and this product was as active as ACTH in isolated rat adrenal cells. We further improved this method of transfer hydrogenation when I went to Ohio State University. Next. So now, to synthesize an 18 residue peptide, I probably will take only 1 week maybe maximum, including starting first amino acid to the purification stage. After purification, we lyophilize. We have all these methodologies easily available, reagents are easily available, resins are modified significantly. Next. Bangalore, Indians of Science was very fortunate that the Professor G.N. Ramachandran moved his laboratory from Chennai, at that time Madras, to Indians of Science, Bangalore. He essentially started molecular biophysics research unit at Indians of Science. So he essentially created the peptide research at IISc by recruiting Professor Balaram, whom the Vice Chancellor has already given all the achievements of Professor Balaram, including recently the award, the Merrifield Award, is the highest award in our field, peptide synthesis. He was recently awarded that. So, Professor Balaram gave me opportunity to meet several scientists who visited his laboratory from abroad. One, Professor Bodansky, I met him and explained to him what I was doing. He gave me an opportunity to go to Columbus, Ohio State. Next. So we always carry home with us. After Ohio State, 1.5 years, Indiana University, 2 years, I went to University of Alabama in Birmingham. I was very fortunate that at UAB, I was able to, Professor Balram advised some of his students and postdocs to come and work with me. I was very fortunate that they came, worked with me, and we published several papers with Professor Balram students. Next. I took a long time to complete my dissertation, and Professor Shivanandaya even admitted one time that he gave me very difficult problem. 18 residue peptide at that time was a very difficult problem. But this was my blessing in disguise. At UAB, I have spent 40 years studying various 18 residue peptides and variations of it. And I will get to that soon. And some of our peptides, hopefully, they will undergo toxicity, etc., and then maybe will be useful clinically. And of course, the credit goes to my mentor. So now I move on to my life at University of Alabama at Birmingham. Atherosclerosis is a chronic disease and it remains asymptomatic for a long time, 30, 40 years. You have the disease but you don't know. There are two reasons for this atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries. One is increase in plasma cholesterol. That is due to increase in atherogenic lipoproteins. And there are situations where apparently cholesterol is normal, but yet they have heart disease. And this is due to inflammatory proteins. So we have produced several peptides that inhibit atherosclerosis with no change in plasma cholesterol level, which is very important point. And some apolipoprotein mimetics. I have only 4 slides to talk about this if I can get to the stage, which dramatically reduce plasma cholesterol level, and particularly HDL and LDL and VLDL. Next slide. So what are lipoproteins? Lipids, as you all know, are not soluble in water, but in the blood they are soluble. They are soluble mainly because of certain proteins that are on the surface and they form so-called lipoproteins. Lipoproteins are mixture of proteins and lipids. The outer layer of lipoproteins form polar lipids and proteins. The inner layer, core consists of neutral lipids, cholesterol ester, triglycerides. And as soon as we consume food, this is what we produce. Chylomicrons, very large lipoproteins. If you take blood, as soon as you consume food, it is turbid because of this chylomicron. That immediately changes into other lipoproteins, very low density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein. So this is based on the density of these lipoproteins. The density depends upon the amount of protein that is present in these particles. High density lipoproteins have maximum number of proteins, more number of proteins, therefore they settle at the bottom during decentrifugation. That's why they are called high density lipoproteins. So there are, you may have heard the name good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, etc. So this is so-called good cholesterol. All others are so-called bad cholesterols. So cholesterol is only one molecule, but in the different associations with different proteins, they form either good or bad cholesterol. Next. As I said, HDL has one major protein which is called apolipoprotein A1. The question at that time was, how do these proteins solubilize lipids? What makes them lipid soluble so-called detergents in the body? So if we examine apolipoprotein A1, it has several helical domains. Each domain, if you observe carefully, next slide, forms a non-polar phase and a polar phase cylinder. So if this is a complementary structure to lipid. Lipid also has, phospholipids have polar phase and an ACE chain, non-polar phase. Because of this complementary nature, apolipoproteins solubilize lipids. As a proof to this hypothesis, this structure is called amphipathic helical structure. As a proof for this structure, we designed some peptides, and these peptides, being a student of Central College, I designed an 18 residue peptide. These peptides have no sequence homology to any of the naturally occurring proteins, but yet when they are folded as alpha helix, they produce amphipathic helical structure. A non-polar phase, hydrophobic phase, and polar phase, charged phase. The charged amino acids, positively charged amino acids at the polar non-polar interface, negatively charged residues at the center of the polar phase. This peptide, only 18 residue peptide, like ApoA1 243 residue protein, was able to solubilize phospholipids, like apolipoprotein A1, form complexes, protein lipid complexes. Like the complexes were similar in size and shape. That's when they were named as apolipoprotein mimetic. But they do a lot more than apolipoprotein A1, as I will show you. For example, ApoA1 does not solubilize POPC or TAPC, the naturally occurring lipids, whereas our peptides are able to solubilize. They are better detergents than even apolipoprotein A1. Next slide. So that gave us, this is the enema structure of the peptide that we synthesized. You can see the stacking of aromatic residues. So we can vary the non-polar phase to introduce several desired amino acids. I had the hypothesis that aromatic residues may be very important. If there are aliphatic residues, they bury deeply into the lipid layer. Whereas aromatic residues, because of the pi electron, the entire helical structure is at the surface, which is very advantageous, as I will explain later. Next slide. So we were able to synthesize several analogs of this 18 residue peptide, and many of them were anti-inflammatory and inhibited atherosclerosis. Next slide. Mice don't get atherosclerosis. We genetically modify the mice. In this case, for our study, we used apolipoprotein knockout mouse. Apolipoprotein E is an important protein in clearing cholesterol. If you knock out apolipoprotein E in these mice, they develop atherosclerosis spontaneously. Cholesterol levels in normal mice is about 60 or 80 milligrams per deciliter. But by knocking out this lipid, this protein, it goes to 400, 500 milligrams per deciliter, and they spontaneously develop atherosclerosis. To these mice, if we either feed the peptide in the form of drinking water or intraperitoneally administer the peptide, some of these peptides, at various concentrations, they inhibited atherosclerosis. What we are seeing here is the aorta stained with oil red ore. If there is more fat in the aorta, you can quantitate that these mice with no peptide, they have a lot of atherosclerosis. But the peptide inhibited the lesion formation of atherosclerosis nicely. This happened next with no change in plasma cholesterol. This is where there is a turning point in our field of atherosclerosis actually. So in co-culture system, which I will explain a little bit more later, the peptide or HDL from peptide administered mice inhibited the LDL induced chemotaxis. I will explain it in the next slide. The administration of the peptide also increased apolipoprotein A1, the major protein component of HDL, and thus increased the HDL and antioxidant enzyme peroxidase. Next slide. So this is what we think as the mechanism of how the peptides protect atherosclerosis. LDL gets enters into endothelial cells, and because of the minimally modified oxidized lipid structure, it gets further oxidized to oxidized LDL. Oxidized LDL enhances monocyte chemotaxis and further takes up the oxidized LDL. Monocytes become macrophages, macrophages become foam cells, and it deposits cholesterol in the artery. And the cholesterol, if it is deposited for a long time, it becomes crystal and blocks the artery. In this process, if there is increased levels of HDL or if we inject the peptide, LDL modification is inhibited. The normal LDL does not promote this chemotaxis. Thus, they inhibit atherosclerosis. Next slide. So this is a mechanism where the HDL, so-called cholesterol, can also be pro-inflammatory. Usually, normal HDL is anti-inflammatory, but if it loses some of its proteins, then it becomes pro-inflammatory. There will be different proteins such as serum amyloid A, etc., and the HDL loses its function. If we treat with our peptide, the pro-inflammatory HDL becomes anti-inflammatory. Next slide. So, this was the beginning of our entering into various fields. The Vice Chancellor mentioned collaboration. That's very important. That's what I did most of the time. We published several papers showing peptide inhibits atherosclerosis and inhibits inflammation mediated by influenza virus. I will show one or two slides on that later. And inhibits lipoproteins, saccharide, lipopolysaccharide mediated inflammatory processes. LPS is highly pro-inflammatory. And bacteria, this is a bacterial polysaccharide. And the peptide binds and clears it, inhibits the process. And we have shown that it inhibits Alzheimer's disease in mouse models, and in some, I'll show that in some aspects of these peptide properties, this is Watanabe rabbits. It's the rabbits with LDL receptors effective. They have very high LDL cholesterol. With this LDL cholesterol being high, if you inject the peptide, it inhibits atherosclerosis even in that. So let's go to the next slide. I worked with one postdoc at that time, Yamanaka, to further support the hypothesis that if there is peptide or peptide gene, we can inhibit atherosclerosis. So I worked for 3 months in Gladstone Research Foundation at San Francisco and obtained 7 founder mice. And at UAB we produced more mice with this background. So this is C57 black cyst background. Fed atherogenic diet. The mice without the gene, they developed atherosclerosis. But with the peptide gene, they did not develop atherosclerosis. So, but it became very expensive to do this. This led to the next kind of research, which is, I want to mention this. Shinya Yamanaka was a postdoc when I went there. Within 7 years, after he left Gladstone Research Foundation, he received a Nobel Prize for his discovery on mature cells can be reprogrammed to become pluripotent cells. Within 7 years. He's a very young scientist even now. Next slide. So this technique led us to develop some transgenic tomatoes where we can introduce a gene, peptide gene, and the tomatoes will contain this gene and also peptide. This is the um, artery of the mice where the tomato is fed in the form of dry powder or extract of tomato, ethyl acetate and acetic acid extract is fed into these mice. And they develop, as you see, the red color is more in these control mice, whereas these tomato fed mice had minimal lesions. So, it, so what are the broad medically important knowledge that we obtained from our research? HDL function and not HDL level per se is important for anti-atherogenicity. ApoA1 mimetics scavenge lipid hydroperoxides. Lipid hydroperoxides are very toxic. If LDL is cleared quickly from the body, it's not a bad cholesterol. But if it stays for a long time, for whatever reason, either receptor defect or maybe more food consumption, that gets modified. Modified LDL is dangerous and it causes inflammation in the artery. So clearance of oxidase LDL is very important. That reduces inflammation. Intestine is the major source of oxidase lipids. So in our, why did these peptides not become drugs even though we published it for so long ago? There is a thinking in drug development, so-called pharmacokinetics. A drug has to stay longer for it to be more active. That doesn't apply in our field. As soon as we inject the peptide, it gets into the gut. It's not in circulation, but it's doing its job. But pharmaceutical industries, we are not able to educate them on this process. Either this ApoA1 mimetic or ApoE mimetic, they do their job, immediately disappear from the system also. And they are not circulating we can study the level of peptides if it is in the blood. But if it disappears onto cells, etc., we cannot determine the levels, in vivo levels. That has been the stumbling block in our research. So, atherosclerosis, diabetes, all these are because of abnormal lipid metabolism. And ApoA1 mimetics can ameliorate all these pathologies. Next. Yeah. Pardon me? With LCAT, yeah, very good question. Yeah. Yes, we have papers initially. One of the important properties of HDL is called reverse cholesterol transport. That is, when we take the cholesterol into body, it has to go from the system, from cells out to the serum again back. And in this process, LCAT is very important. Lecithin cholesterol acid transferase is very important. Yes, they do. In fact, we designed certain peptides which mimic A1, are better than A1 in enhancing LCAT activity. Yes, thank you. So we stumbled upon some antiviral properties of these peptides. If we all know that with influenza, our body temperature rises, but in mice, the body temperature goes down. They huddle in one place, and they also lose the body weight. I will show that later. So, if normal mice move around fast like this, but influenza infected mice huddle like that. If we inject the peptide, they look like normal mice. In these mice, peptide administered mice, the cytokine levels are as normal as the normal mice. So they inhibit inflammation mediated by influenza virus. Next. So our ex-president, President of the United States, during COVID time made several statements. One of the statements is that why don't you give them, the patients, detergents? So he didn't know what detergents one can give. But that statement was important for me. What we had was detergents, peptide detergents. So I immediately went and talked with the virologists, had many meetings, and I told them some of our peptides can rupture the normal structure of the virus. And the peptide treated viruses may not be infective at all. They may not propagate. They took my words with a pinch of salt and gave me an opportunity to do some experiments next. So this is the first studies were in vitro when the virus propagates. Virus has spike proteins, and we can follow the propagation of virus using antibody to fluorescent antibody to spike proteins. So with propagation you can see antibody, it covers entire petri dish. But if we treat these peptide, these viruses, particularly COVID, with peptide for an hour or at different time points, you can see the propagation is inhibited. And in fact, it is as good as better than one of the antiviral drugs that were in the market. I'll tell you about that now. Now this is a mouse model for COVID, that is angiotensin converting enzyme knock-in mice. This protein is a receptor for the spike protein. So if we knock in, these mice are available commercially. So if we inject the peptide, without the peptide, you can see the normal mice, they all die. They start dying in 5-6 days and they all die within 10 days. But the remdesivir is the drug that was one of the drugs available for COVID. Even that was not as effective. It is somewhat effective. But our peptides, two of our peptides, in fact one of them is protein residue peptide, they were highly effective when this is not administered, this is given as inhalation. Because COVID mice, we cannot, once we expose it to COVID, we cannot touch the animals. So we can only give it by inhalation. Next slide. So this, the one that I showed you is treating the virus for an hour with peptide and then giving the virus. And this one is first treated, the mice were treated with the virus and then peptides were administered at different time points. You can see compared to the control mice, this peptide protected the mice very nicely. So not only that it protects, it also develops antibodies to these viruses, because our hypothesis is that it breaks open the virus, all the constituents of virus are still there, but virus is not able to propagate because it has lost its structure. And therefore this process produces antibody to the virus. To support that, we used flu virus here. Without flu virus, the control mice, they lose their body weight significantly, and also most of them die. Some of them are alive. With peptide administration, the body weight doesn't decrease, and they are healthy. 7 days, or even, we have even done 5 weeks later. Another challenge of virus protected all the mice from this virus infection. Some of the mice that survived here also had the antigenicity to the virus. Next slide. So, this is, I told you initially that apolipoprotein E is a very important protein. The absence of apolipoprotein E, LDL, VLDL and even LDL cannot be cleared. So we wanted to develop certain peptides which clear these bad cholesterols or LDL. Apolipoprotein E has 2 domains. One long amphipathic helical domain which is able to bind to lipid. Next, the 4 helix bundle domain. In this 4 helix bundle domain, there is a positively charged domain with most of them being arginine or lysines. This is a 340 residue protein, it's a long protein, but we wanted to develop small peptide mimics of this protein. So what I did was, we had this ApoA1 mimetic peptide that we designed 18 residues. We used that and covalently linked the so-called receptor binding domain from ApoE. They became dual domain peptides, lipid binding domain and receptor binding domain. And we have published several papers. I will show you only one set of examples. So we modified that. Instead of acetyl group here, we used acyl groups. The idea was that if it binds to LDL tightly, then it is more effective. Next slide. In monkeys, this is monkeys fed with Western diet, high-fat diet, and they become dyslipidemic. The cholesterol level goes to 400, 450. If we administer the peptide, one-time administration, for more than, actually in this case, more than a week, the cholesterol level is reduced. And these are different peptides. You can see this milstride peptide reduce the plasma cholesterol very significantly. These are the quantification of plasma cholesterol. This is area under the curve. Compared to control, it is less than 50% at the end of the experiment. And also, even in rabbits and in other mouse models of atherosclerosis, we have shown that this peptide inhibits atherosclerosis. Apolipoprotein E is also important in Alzheimer's disease. If the patients have different, there are 3 alleles of apolipoprotein E, different alleles of apolipoprotein E, they have the risk for atherosclerosis. That's one of the tests for Alzheimer's disease, the allele of apolipoprotein E. So even in that cases, the peptide is highly effective in clearing plasma cholesterol level and inhibiting the atherosclerosis. Next slide. So this has been said that already. We have, there are several, I'm not involved in any of these companies, but several companies, startup companies have been working on this, on many of these things. This is age-related macular degeneration, which is a big problem, and there's no proper drug available for this. In monkeys, we have shown that if this AMD, age-related macular degeneration, can be inhibited. So many people have worked with me, and I'm retired, and I still go to laboratory one person who still comes to my laboratory without me giving him any salary is this Dr. Palgunachari. He helps me personally, professionally, in every possible way. So I wanted to mention that. This is Professor Nanjagowda in 1967, I guess. And you can see now the building looks much better than this. Thank you very much. Very well. I have only one question I heard.
So as you pointed out with arginine cysteine or arginine or cysteine leucine or cysteine glutamate, so is there a suspicion what
you are talking about is the lipoprotein, lipoprotein allele.
Yes.
One particular point in ApoE is either arginine or cysteine or glutamic acid. Yes, arginine one is the normal one. That's what we want. But the other two, one causes dyslipidemia, another one causes Alzheimer's.
So that cysteine could be a suspicious point.
Yes.
So by nature, these monocytes are very less lifespan. Yes. Monocytes are within the blood only.
Yes.
And you said they will be recruited from the outside to inside.
So with the inflammation, with LDL, oxidate LDL promotes monocyte recruitment.
So will they be in the tissue also, sir, along with present in the...
And it gets converted to macrophages. Macrophages are also important in clearing foreign bodies. But if it changes from non-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory macrophage to pro-inflammatory macrophage, it takes up this bad cholesterol, oxidate LDL, and then becomes foam cells. That's the bad stage. That foam cell develop that deposits cholesterol in the arteries.
So then another thing is, so far about Alzheimer's disease, like what we have heard about this amyloid precursor protein, beta amyloid, and neurofibrillary tangles and other things. So how this ApoE or ApoE is involved in formation of Alzheimer's disease?
The Alzheimer's is also related to cholesterol. Actually, ApoE reduces your great cholesterol, which is the cholesterol is routine aspect of any inflammation. And with inflammation, the Alzheimer's protein, the protein, it gets modulated.
So being cholesterol lipid, will the myelination gets affected, sir?
By these amplified molecules, we can keep this highly hydrophobic protein.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I request my fellow classmate Yashaswini to deliver vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this event. Let me first start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's event a grand success. I express my heartfelt thanks to our Honorable VC, Professor Lingraju Gandhi, who despite his busy schedule has found time to grace this occasion. And my sincere thanks to our Registrar, Shri Javregowda KS, for his valuable time. I thank our Honorable Guest Speaker, Professor Emeritus, Dr. GM Anantharamaiah Sir, for sharing your journey in the field of peptide research with all of us. And sir, you showed us how a successful journey looks like. My humble thanks to our beloved Professor Nanjegowda, former chairman of Chemistry Department, for his presence here today. I heartfully express my extreme pleasure to have amongst our midst Professor P. Balram, Pharma Director, Indian Institute of Science. I am grateful to our respectful Dean of Sciences, Chairman of Chemistry Department, Professor Hari Prasad Sir, for his support, vision and commitment. Special thanks to all the alumni of Chemistry Department. My humble thanks to all our beloved faculty members for their support. I thank all the distinguished invitees for gracing this event by their presence. My special gratitude to the non-teaching staff for their support. Lastly, I thank all my fellow classmates for their cooperation in making this event a grand success. Once again, I thank all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. High tea is arranged in C2. Thank you all.